Welcome to a new case. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and come back for a new real case. Thanks for watching. A physician on duty in a German hospital received a sudden call from abroad. The message was short, just a few words, but powerful enough to make her drop the phone right there in the operating room. Her daughter, once the pride of her life, was now lying in critical condition after a drug overdose in a hospital far away in Moldova. That young woman was Anna Lejkovic, the 21-year-old daughter of Praskovya Lejkovic. Anna, a medical student living on her own in Moldova, had long been known for her reckless lifestyle. From an early age, she carried a reputation for being free-spirited, often drinking and experimenting with drugs, with several overdose incidents on record. When Praskovya learned the devastating news, she didn't hesitate for a second. She completed her surgery, left the hospital immediately, and boarded the first available flight to Moldova. The moment she arrived, she rushed to Anna's apartment, heart racing with dread, filled with fear, guilt, and the painful weight of all the possibilities of losing the daughter she cherished most. To understand her reaction, we need to go back into her story. Born and raised in Moldova, a small country situated between Romania and Ukraine, Praskovya had been an exceptional student since childhood. She entered medical school at the age of 18. During her university years, she met Basil, a talented young entrepreneur who had already built a name for himself in Moldova's business scene. They fell in love quickly, married, and within a year welcomed their first child, Anna. But happiness was short-lived. Praskovya faced relentless academic pressure, trying to balance her medical training with the demands of motherhood. Basil, meanwhile, was fully absorbed in running his business. With neither parent able to care for Anna full-time, the child was entrusted to her paternal grandparents. The couple's relationship deteriorated rapidly, leading to divorce. Praskovya was granted custody. Though Basil continued financial support, his emotional presence faded almost entirely after he remarried. Left to fill that void, Praskovya pushed herself harder, determined that Anna would never feel abandoned. Even after becoming a full-time doctor with endless responsibilities, she carved out time for her daughter, ensuring she always felt loved. Anna thrived under that dedication. She grew up confident, balanced, and became her mother's greatest pride. Despite her parents' divorce, she seemed to navigate adolescence without serious trauma. Inspired by her mother, she chose to pursue medicine after high school. Intelligent and quick to learn, she appeared on the right track. On occasion, she went to parties or drank with friends, but her mother dismissed it as normal, youthful indulgence. What Praskovya hadn't anticipated was that emotional guidance alone wouldn't be enough. The cost of medical school and Anna's living expenses in Moldova created an overwhelming financial burden. Just as she struggled to find a solution, an unexpected opportunity arose. One ordinary day at the hospital, Praskovya was offered a long-term position in Germany with a salary nearly 10 times higher than her income in Moldova. It was a life-changing offer, but it came with a painful dilemma: her daughter's future. After careful thought, she laid out two options for Anna: either move to Germany with her and restart medical school, or stay behind in Moldova to continue her studies. Anna, now an adult, chose to stay. Her mother prepared to leave for Germany, while Anna looked for her own apartment, stepping into independence. That transition became a turning point. She began to pay more attention to her image and appearance. Always naturally attractive, Anna enhanced her looks further with a few cosmetic procedures. Social media soon became her stage, a platform where she could showcase her beauty and confidence. Then, one post unexpectedly went viral, gathering hundreds of thousands of likes and drawing widespread attention. The sudden rush of popularity thrilled her, and soon Anna began posting with increasing frequency. Her Instagram following skyrocketed. She shared glamorous shopping photos from Paris and Milan, bikini selfies showing off her toned figure, and shots that looked straight out of a fashion magazine. When her account surpassed 10,000 followers, she became known as the stunning medical student with a trendy modern lifestyle. But behind the glamour of Anna's Instagram life, her mother Praskovya was quietly working long, grueling hours in Germany to financially support her daughter. Worried that growing up without a father figure might leave emotional scars, Praskovya never hesitated to spend generously. Thanks to her support, Anna lived more comfortably than most of her peers. Eventually, once she was settled in Germany, Praskovya even bought Anna a luxury apartment in Moldova as a gift. Each time she scrolled through her daughter's Instagram feed, Praskovya felt reassured. The stylish clothes, smiling selfies, and apparent joy convinced her that Anna was living a full and happy life, perhaps even better than the one she herself had ever known. What she didn't know was what was really going on behind those perfectly curated photos. In reality, since her mother moved to Germany and she began living alone, Anna had full control over her life, and that freedom quickly spiraled into recklessness. She frequently hosted parties, drinking heavily with friends at home, and when alcohol no longer gave her the thrill she sought, she turned to drugs. It wasn't long before all-night parties and indiscriminate sexual encounters became part of her routine. That's what led to the hospital call. When Anna was rushed to the ER, it had been nearly 3 years since she and her mother had last lived under the same roof. Outwardly, Anna seemed to be thriving, but in truth she had been slipping deeper into a destructive lifestyle. Still, when Praskovya received that call from the hospital, she had absolutely no idea what her daughter's life had become. As soon as she got the call, Praskovya didn't allow herself even a moment of hesitation. Before heading to Moldova, she had only one thought in mind. She had to bring Anna back to Germany and get her into rehab as soon as possible. She immediately reached out to her professional contacts in the medical field to find the best treatment center available. The only thing left was convincing her daughter to return. Fueled by that determination, Praskovya went straight to Anna's apartment and walked in. A thick cloud of marijuana hit her the moment the door opened, making it hard to breathe. The place was a mess, clothes scattered across the floor, liquor bottles everywhere, and a damp, foul-smelling atmosphere. On the couch, Anna lay passed out, looking completely drained. On the coffee table across from her sat a half-empty bottle of liquor and traces of white powder that hadn't been cleaned up. Praskovya rushed over, knelt down beside her daughter, and grabbed her by the shoulders, gently but firmly shaking her awake. Anna's reaction was deeply concerning. She barely opened her eyes despite several attempts to wake her. Clearly intoxicated, she seemed to register her mother's presence but struggled even to stand. When she tried, she staggered and nearly collapsed. Seeing her pale face and frail body, Praskovya instantly understood how far her daughter's health had deteriorated. Holding Anna by the shoulders, she softly pleaded with her. If she kept living this way, her body wouldn't last. She explained that she had already found a top-tier rehab center and begged Anna to come back with her. But what happened next shook Praskovya to her core. Instead of calming down, Anna exploded with rage. She screamed that she didn't need help, shoved her mother away, and began thrashing in a state of panic. High and emotionally unstable, she cried uncontrollably, yelling that it was all her mother's fault. As her emotions spiraled, she kept shouting that Praskovya had been absent all those years, and now, suddenly, was trying to control her life. The meltdown escalated even further. In a sudden burst of fury, Anna sprang up and ran to the kitchen. Without a second thought, she yanked open a drawer, pulled out a knife, and came charging back. Praskovya, following closely behind, barely had time to react before her daughter lunged at her with the blade. The first stab landed, then another, and another. Dozens more followed in a frenzied, uncontrollable attack. Blood quickly spread across the floor as Praskovya collapsed on the spot, unable to fight back. But Anna didn't stop. She climbed on top of her mother's body and began stabbing her in the abdomen. Praskovya screamed in agony, but Anna, without a moment's hesitation, kept going. With surgical precision, Anna slashed deep into the wound, then reached inside with her bare hands. As a medical student, she knew exactly where to find the heart, and she pulled it out from her mother's chest with her own hands. She then removed the lungs and other internal organs, cutting them into small pieces with the same knife. Once the area around her was littered with torn flesh, Anna calmly gathered the parts and tossed them into the trash can, as if disposing of leftovers. Then, she walked into the bathroom, rinsed the blood from her skin, and within 5 minutes, was seated at her vanity, humming a soft tune and applying lipstick, like nothing had happened. Shortly after, she left the apartment to meet her boyfriend. She acted completely normal. The two of them enjoyed champagne, had dinner, and chatted happily throughout their date. And as the evening came to a quiet close, in the middle of a casual conversation, Anna leaned in and calmly said, "I just killed my mother." At first, Anna's boyfriend thought she was just joking, but as soon as he saw the cold look in her eyes and realized her tone was completely serious, a chill ran down his spine. Not wanting to escalate the situation, he gently told her not to say things like that and tried to remain calm in order to defuse the tension. A few hours later, around 9:30 p.m., Anna, already drunk, had fallen asleep at his place. Seizing the opportunity, he quietly took the keys to her apartment from the pocket of her coat. One thought consumed his mind. What if she wasn't joking? He needed to see for himself. Unable to sit still any longer, he rushed to Anna's apartment, heart pounding the entire way. The moment he opened the door, he was struck by a horrific scene. Blood splattered across the kitchen floor, the body missing, and only internal organs scattered across the ground. Struggling to stay composed, he pulled out his phone and called the police. By 10 p.m., officers arrived at the scene, and even the most seasoned among them had to look away from the gruesome sight. They listened carefully as the boyfriend recounted what he had been told, but it was hard to believe that a young woman could have done something so brutal to her own mother. Still, every piece of forensic evidence pointed in one direction. This had been Anna's doing, and hers alone. There were no signs of forced entry. Her bloody footprints and fingerprints were found throughout the apartment, from the body's location to the kitchen and bathroom. The knife used in the attack had only her DNA on it. At the same time, police received confirmation that Anna was still at her boyfriend's home, asleep. A unit was immediately dispatched. However, Anna seemed to realize they were closing in. Before officers could arrive, she fled. An emergency warrant was issued that night, and authorities launched a nationwide manhunt across Moldova. To track her down, investigators widened their efforts, analyzing her phone activity, social media presence, GPS data, and recent use of bank cards. From her call records, they picked up clues that she might be hiding out at a friend's house. Exactly 72 hours after the warrant was issued, Anna was found and taken into custody. When brought into the interrogation room, Anna began screaming and protesting loudly, repeatedly demanding to know why she was being treated this way. Her reaction did not surprise the investigators. Even though they had more than enough evidence to charge her, they wanted to observe her behavior in response to her mother's death. What they saw was chilling. Despite the brutal nature of the crime, Anna showed no signs of remorse. She insisted she had done nothing wrong. Her statements were disturbing, but so was her behavior. She avoided eye contact entirely, refused to answer basic questions, obsessively picked at her fingernails, and even laughed to herself for no clear reason. Just 3 days after the murder, Anna appeared in court for her initial hearing, held on December 16, 2020. Under Moldovan law, a first court appearance must be held within 72 hours of detention. At the preliminary hearing, prosecutors revealed a horrifying detail. The victim's internal organs had been removed while she was still alive. This emphasized the extreme cruelty of Anna's actions toward her own mother. The prosecution firmly argued that Anna fully deserved a life sentence regardless of her gender. However, under Moldovan criminal law, women cannot be sentenced to life imprisonment. This legal restriction is designed as a form of protection for vulnerable groups in society. Yet given the gruesome nature of Anna's crime, legal experts argued that such a case is nearly without precedent anywhere in the world. Throughout the hearing, Anna continued to display bizarre behavior. She lay sprawled across the defendant's bench as if she were lounging at home. At one point, she began fiddling with her nails right in the middle of the proceedings. When the judge instructed her to stand, Anna briefly sat up, only to slump back down again moments later. During the questioning that followed, when asked whether she felt remorse for what she had done, Anna simply smiled and flashed a V sign with her fingers, a mocking gesture in the middle of a murder trial. A journalist in the courtroom, unable to contain their outrage, shouted at her, calling her a mother killer. Anna responded with a sarcastic wave, as if she were saying goodbye, then turned away. In light of her disturbing behavior, even her own defense attorney appeared visibly unsettled. He immediately requested a mental health evaluation. He argued that his client was not mentally competent at the time of the murder, citing prolonged substance abuse involving both alcohol and drugs. Rather than imprisonment, the attorney urged the court to send Anna for psychiatric assessment and treatment. The court agreed and temporarily suspended the trial to allow for a mandatory medical evaluation. Over the next 2 months, 5 independent specialists were brought in to assess Anna's mental health. Their findings were conclusive. Anna was suffering from drug-induced psychosis combined with antisocial personality disorder and severe emotional dysregulation. Based on those results, the court ruled in February 2021 to have Anna committed involuntarily to a psychiatric facility. Since then, she has been held at a secure mental health institution for high-risk individuals in Moldova. But the impact of the case extended far beyond the courtroom. The story exploded on social media, triggering heated debates and public outrage. One of the most controversial issues was the legal loophole that prevents life sentences for women in Moldova. While protecting vulnerable populations is vital in a civilized society, critics questioned whether this principle, when applied rigidly to crimes devoid of humanity, might be a sign that justice itself is eroding. And just as the dust was beginning to settle in Moldova, another tragedy shocked the Philippines. At exactly 3 p.m. on December 10, 2021, a teacher named Cruz Magwad was in the middle of class at a high school in Cotabato when he received a frantic call from an acquaintance. His home had been broken into, and everything inside had been destroyed. Without hesitation, Cruz left the school and rushed home. Fear and dread overwhelmed him, especially because it was still early in the afternoon, and his 2 children were definitely home alone. But that uneasy feeling quickly turned into sheer horror. When Cruz Magwad arrived at his front gate, he found the front door locked and the entire house eerily silent. He rushed around to the backyard, where there was a secondary entrance through the kitchen, and immediately ran inside. What he saw stopped him cold. His eldest daughter, Crizel Gwyn, just 18 years old, was lying motionless in the middle of the living room, covered in blood. Not far from her body, her skin showed clear signs of violent assault, deep cuts and heavy bruising all over. Nearby, her younger brother, Crizel Lewis, 16, was found bound and gagged, his body drenched in blood. Scattered around the crime scene were broken glass bottles, a hammer, and a bloodied baseball bat. As Magwad stood frozen in the middle of the chaos, a strange noise echoed from the second floor. No one appeared. He called out, desperate, calling for his daughter by name. Moments later, a voice responded from upstairs. It was Janice, also 16. She appeared physically unharmed, but was visibly shaken and trembling. The moment she saw her father, she ran straight into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Janice would turn out to be the sole survivor and key witness to this horrific crime. According to her testimony, just 10 minutes before the attack, at around 2 p.m., the 3 siblings had been home alone when 3 unidentified men broke into the house. The intruders first attacked Louis near the front door. Then they began ransacking the house as if searching for something specific. Moments later, they charged at her older sister. Crizel Gwyn's terrified screams echoed through the house as she fought back in vain during the brutal onslaught. Janice, witnessing everything, immediately realized the gravity of the danger. In a panic, she ran to the bedroom and crawled under the bed to hide. One by one, the intruders opened every door, But strangely, they never checked under the bed. Thanks to that, Janice miraculously survived. By around 3 p.m., she quietly turned on her phone and logged into Facebook to call for help. She posted a desperate message saying that intruders were in the house, that she was hiding, and that she feared for her life. Her plea spread quickly on social media, and police were alerted just in time. Almost simultaneously with the police being notified, Janice's father arrived at the house, just minutes before law enforcement. After securing the scene, investigators immediately began questioning the surviving witness. Janice explained that the 3 intruders appeared to be searching for valuables, as every drawer, bookshelf, and hidden corner of the house had been turned upside down. But what raised immediate red flags for police was this. Only one item was missing: Gwyn's cell phone. The sheer brutality of the attack, combined with the fact that nothing else was stolen, led detectives to suspect that this was not a robbery, but rather a targeted, premeditated murder. As investigators dug deeper, the evidence began to support their initial suspicions. A formal investigation was launched. At the crime scene, police discovered a disturbing detail. The perpetrators had showered in the home after committing the murders. In the laundry room, investigators found signs that underwear and pants had been changed. All the clues led to an even more shocking revelation. After the killings, the suspects had taken time to clean themselves, stuffed the bloodied clothing into a plastic bag, and threw it into a nearby river. Fortunately, the bag got caught on a tree branch near the riverbank and didn't drift too far, allowing authorities to recover critical physical evidence. Amid rising public outrage, the brutal murder of the Magwad siblings quickly became a national media sensation in the Philippines. The government responded by forming a special investigative task force and bringing in criminal profiling experts. A significant monetary reward was also offered to encourage citizens to come forward with tips. Thanks to these swift actions, public interest surged. On social media, the hashtag #Justice for Magwad siblings began trending nationwide as thousands of users shared details of the case and theories about who might be behind such a heinous crime. As speculation grew, one name drew the most attention: Janice, the sole survivor of the massacre. Suspicion intensified when it was revealed that Janice was adopted and not biologically related to Gwyn and Louis Magwad, the biological children of Cruz Magwad and his wife. Janice came from a troubled background. She lost both parents at a young age and grew up without family support or stability. In her early teens, she worked as a babysitter for relatives of the Magwad family. That's how she gradually got to know and bond with the household. Because she was close in age to Gwyn, the 2 girls quickly became friends. They often made TikTok videos together and bonded over shared teenage experiences and interests. Through this connection, Janice became a familiar and trusted presence in the Magwad home. One day, during a casual conversation with their daughter, Cruz and his wife learned about Janice's difficult circumstances. A bright student, working to support herself entirely on her own at such a young age, moved them deeply. Out of compassion, they initially decided to support her financially for a period of time. Over time, the bond between Janice and the family grew stronger. In July 2021, just 5 months before the murders, the Magwads made the decision to legally adopt her. This move was largely inspired by Gwyn, who had always considered Janice a sister and had pleaded with her parents to welcome her into the family. Of course, this wasn't a decision made on impulse. The parents had observed Janice for years, gradually developing trust and sympathy for the hardships she had endured. After careful consideration, they officially registered her as a member of the household. Because of this, when the murders occurred, Janice's status as an adopted child quickly became a source of public outrage. At the time, the Philippine Special Investigation Unit publicly declared that she was a victim, not a suspect. Yet, social media platforms were flooded with baseless accusations claiming she was the killer. The government was forced to step in, issuing a formal statement emphasizing that no one should be accused of a crime without official evidence or a legal conclusion. In the aftermath of that heartbreaking tragedy, the emotional bond between Janice and her adoptive parents grew stronger than ever. Even though she had only been adopted 5 months prior and had never once called them mom or dad, The three embraced in tears. Through sobs, Janice spoke the words for the first time, calling them Dad and Mom, and promised to stay by their side to help them get through the pain. However, as the investigation expanded, suspicion around Janice intensified. Her statements didn't match the crime scene. One red flag stood out in particular. At the very moment Cruz Magwad returned home, Janice had just stepped out of the bathroom, a detail eerily consistent with the forensic theory that the killer had showered after the murders. This strange coincidence raised immediate doubts. In her statement, Janice claims she heard strange noises, realized something terrible was happening, and hid under the bed in fear. But when her father arrived, she emerged from the bathroom instead. When questioned, she said she was so terrified and shaken that she tried to calm herself down by taking a shower. But that wasn't the only inconsistency. Her testimony about the sequence of the killings also troubled investigators. Janice claimed that Louis, the younger brother, was attacked first, near the entryway. However, the autopsy results and forensic evidence painted a different picture. Specifically, among the two siblings, Gwyn was determined to have died first. Her body showed early signs of decomposition, including ant activity. Meanwhile, Louis's body was still clean, without any such signs, indicating that he died after his sister. To resolve these contradictions, investigators refocused their attention entirely on Janice. In December 2021, her legal status was officially changed from witness to suspect. During interrogation, Janice lowered her head and confessed, admitting that she was the one who murdered both Gwyn and Louis. As the investigation delved deeper into her personal life, Janice's psychological issues became more apparent. Despite gaining a new home and family, she struggled to share emotional space. Janice became increasingly jealous whenever her adoptive parents showed affection toward their biological children, even though, by all accounts, they had treated her fairly and equally. But for Janice, fairness wasn't enough. She wanted exclusive love. Her inner resentment kept building. She believed that, because she wasn't their biological daughter, Cruz and his wife saw her as an outsider, leaving her with a deep sense of not truly belonging. That pain turned into anger and a desperate longing for validation. Janice threw herself into academics, hoping that getting high grades would finally earn her the attention and love she craved from her adoptive parents. But that goal was far from easy. Both Cruz and his wife were school teachers, and their children, Gwyn and Louis, had been raised with rigorous educational discipline from a young age. No matter how hard Janice tried, she could never quite match their level. One day, Janice decided to create a situation that would draw attention from her adoptive parents. She knew that Cruz and his wife often kept spare cash in a small jar in their bedroom in case their children needed emergency money while they were away. To carry out her plan, Janice stole $175 from the jar, then broke the bedroom window to stage a fake break-in. She rushed to her adoptive mother, claiming that she had discovered a burglary in progress. While it might have looked like a theft, in reality, her true motive was simple. She wanted to become the center of attention in the family. But her plan unraveled quickly. Gwyn happened to check Janice's bag and found the missing money. The entire scheme was exposed. Once the lie came to light, Janice lashed out at Gwyn and Louis, saying that if it weren't for them, their parents would give her all their love and attention. Soon after, authorities began looking into Janice's background, and what they found was alarming. She had lied about her past. Janice had claimed to be an orphan, with both parents dead, but in reality, her biological family was alive and living on Mindanao Island, Philippines. She even had 3 siblings. And the name Janice wasn't even her real name, it was one she made up. Janice was not an orphan as she had claimed. Her parents had divorced when she was young, and she ran away from home by choice. She built a narrative that painted her as a tragic, abandoned child, perhaps all part of a calculated plan to get adopted. But when the murders happened, Janice wasn't acting alone. She had recruited 2 acquaintances, one of whom was her boyfriend, Esmeraldo Canedo Jr. The 3 of them planned and executed the murders together, using knives and a baseball bat to brutally kill Gwyn and Louis. The crime shocked the nation, and the trial became a major event in the Philippines. After overwhelming evidence and witness testimonies were presented in court, Janice was sentenced to 17 years in prison for the murder of Gwyn, and another 17 years for the murder of Lewis, a total of 34 years behind bars. Her two accomplices received similar sentences handed down by the court. 2 horrific crimes, 2 different countries. But one chilling pattern. Young women entering loving households, searching for warmth and belonging, only for it all to end in bloodshed. One killed her biological mother. The other murdered the siblings who welcomed her as family. At first, both appeared to be vulnerable girls in need of compassion. But in the end, they became the ones who destroyed the very people who trusted and cared for them. What they committed weren't just murders. They were acts of profound betrayal against bonds built on love. What are your thoughts on this case? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next chilling crime.